All right, guys, this is Dave Manjura, and today we have a special session of the SkillBridge. We're going to be talking about your LinkedIn profile. The reason why we want to bring up this topic is because not only did it work for us to attract the right buyers and for us to attract qualified hiring companies, but it's also something that you can leverage as a remote candidate, whether you're an SDR, an AE, an account manager. It goes as far as you want, right? We realize LinkedIn is obviously contributing to pipeline. And the reason is because what I'm seeing is candidates leveraging it as part of their calling and email sequence, right? A lot of people that are getting in calls, they also want to reconnect with the person they called on LinkedIn. So one of the things that I want to go over on today's masterclass on LinkedIn is why are we using LinkedIn, not only as a candidate, not only as a hiring company, and not only for those that like to build in public. So one of the things that I want to cover on this session is the importance of context, how to build a system or a profile as an SEO map so that you get found easily, whether you're looking for opportunities, whether you get hired through us, and then it allows you to now look like a qualified and competitive candidate because you can leverage your LinkedIn in order to stand out across your teammates, right? So I don't want you guys to think LinkedIn as, if I have a better, I'm going to have more opportunity than everybody else. No, it should be an opportunity for you to empower everybody else in your team. And the more you protect that context, the more narrative and clear messaging you're going to have across your channels. So the overall takeaway from this is if we protect context, if we leverage LinkedIn, we are going to stand out as a competitive candidate, and you're going to learn more about what you're offering, right? So want to start sharing my screen and kind of walk you through the presentation that I have for you guys today. And this presentation is going to cover a step-by-step playbook that we followed, and I'm sure this is going to help you guys a ton. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, guys. So this is my LinkedIn profile. As you guys probably recognize me on a few of the posts that I make. I make a lot of content on companies that are looking to hire, opportunities that are available, people that recently have gotten hired. And I also like to build in public. The reason why is because it helps me attract the best GTM talent. So if I'm not using these tools, if I'm not leveraging them, it's very hard for people to think that I can actually help them with their career, right? So I'm going to walk you through everything we did in order for us to get to this point where our narrative is protected, our context is protected, and people can actually reach out and meet with me and then actually have an idea of what we do, right? So the presentation that I'm going to walk you guys is here on LinkedIn. The reason why is because I want to make sure that you guys can go back and see it and eventually leverage it after this call. All right. So this is the presentation that I use. It was actually a presentation that I went over with the team of AimFox, where we walked through how to use your LinkedIn profile in order to capture demand. But it involves few things you have to do first. So one of the things that I want to go over is why do I lean so much into context? The reason why is because you now have the opportunity to extract your data from LinkedIn and then give it to Claude, right? So if you go to settings and you go to data privacy and you're going to download your data and you select this first button, you can extract all that information from your LinkedIn, right? And what does this allow you? Have clarity on your own profile and then actually start in the right foot, right? So the reason why I want to say that is because that pretty much allows us to cover everything that I'm going to show you, right? So what is the main problem that's going on right now is that everyone is obsessed with outreach volume and nobody's building the profile that makes outreach stick, right? So what I realize is if you get hired by a company, right, and if they see that you have a LinkedIn profile that stands out, they're potentially going to do outreach campaigns using your profiles, right? And it's easier for you to guarantee results if the profile actually does reflect your company's narrative, and you look like an authority figure, right? What I've noticed is that it's not just about having one person with a solid profile, it's having multiple people with their profile optimized as well. Because what happens is I might do the outreach, but they might convert in another teammate's profile, right? Because there's different personality traits. There's people that rather talk to somebody else than the CROs, the CEOs. They rather talk to somebody as a managerial position, right? So this kind of I want to show you what happens when you have a profile that's not optimized versus a profile that is optimized. So if the profile is not optimized, what happens is that messages go into the void, no credibility when they click, low reply rates, and this high in high volume, burn through leads fast. So it's a and pray kind of play, and it could work at a certain point, right? You might have a strong I would call it you might have a strong voice to voice approach, right? But sometimes it can go as far, right? You want to make sure that your profile actually looks like an authority profile so that people can open up conversations, right? That's going to activate inbound. That's going to make sure that you take your job more serious because now you have people that are expecting quality content from you. And then from there, you pretty much take more ownership, right? So positive things that can happen is your profile converts visitors, credibility pre-built, um, higher reply rates, and then compounding returns, right? So people might convert in your content, in comments, directly in your DM, or they're just gonna refer somebody like, hey, this is a nice profile. I like what they offer, or hey, I want to learn how to make my profile look that way. So you're not only just fixing a problem for yourself, you're also influencing other people to take their LinkedIn serious. And next thing you know, they might be closing more deals than the previous months, right? So the three pillars that I want to go over is AI as a context engine. So it's pretty much feed everything to your AI so it learns more about you than yourself, right? And the thing is that when you give a lot of information to AI, it actually can keep that level of context um, for for a lot of data that you give it, right? Because sometimes when we're creating content, we're doing it ad hoc, and then it's resetting itself every time you ask a question. So now with the AI, with the power of the agents and how complex and better all these agents have became, you can actually give a lot of information. You actually are capable to protect that level of context at such a high level. So feed everything to AI, create the context engine, and then profile mapping as a system. So every profile field is a keyword opportunity. So nothing should repeat and everything should compound. I'm going to go over this with you guys. And then how to model top performers, right? So how do you study what authority profiles do and apply their structure to yours? So LinkedIn, you're going to realize 60% is you being creative, 40% is modeling others. And if that doesn't click up for you, you don't snap out of that, it's going to be very hard for you to compete, right? So each one compounds the other. So quick recap, AI as a context engine, you have to give all the context. In this case, we could give it the export from LinkedIn, which is all your data. You're going to map your profile as a system, and you're going to model top performers, right? Um, so why AI changes the game? So previously, you will manually rewrite copy every time. You'll guess what resonates with your ICP, so you're constantly guessing. There was no memory between the edits, and there was starting from scratch with each update, right? So the way that we can do it now is that considering that AI has all the context, now you're capable to protect that level of context, right? The messages that you're sending out, the connections that you have, the people that you're sending connections to, right? So it kind of keeps you on track, and especially with the capability of Claude now, you're capable to score the data that you have on your LinkedIn. So I could give it 20,000 connections that I have, and Claude will actually give me a report, and then cross-reference that with our ICP. So now I know out of the people that I'm connected to throughout the whole year on LinkedIn, which of those, uh, based on the amount of the network that you have, which ones actually fit your ICP, right? So what I've noticed from my profile, for example, is that I'm connecting with 600 people per month, right? And that gives me an average of, I would say, 6,000 connections a year, something like that, right? So I need to measure out of all the people that I connect to every month, what percentage is actually my ICP, or else I'm just making content for anybody, and that's not the point. You want to make sure that you're creating content for your Dream 100 or your actual deal one clients, which is people that already transacted in the marketplace, in our case, or people that had transacted in your product, right? If you're selling something. So the new way is persistent context across every edit. AI maintains your voice and positioning, and then every update builds on the last. So you're not losing context as you're questioning it. Instead, you're teaching it so it learns more. So your AI should know more about your LinkedIn better than you. So let's put it in a position. You're an SDR, you're an AE, you have SOPs you have to follow, you have context or a narrative you have to follow for whenever you're building sequences, you're doing call calling, or you're managing a team. So feed that information to AI so that you're not guessing at any given point, right? And the more you feed it, the more content you can make. You could come up with articles, you could come up with content, you can come up with better conversations. If you go to an event, now you can talk about your product way better than you usually would do, right? So this is very important for SDRs and AEs, is protect your context. If you can protect your context, then it's gonna put you in a better position to hold a solid conversation. And the more you know, the more context, the more of an expert subject matter you're going to be, and is going to position you for success, right? So how do you build your content engine? First is you create a custom GPT or a Claude project. What you do is you upload a PDF of your LinkedIn profile and then the data that we exported, right? Then you instruct the AI to define your voice, ICP, and then positioning. So you have to give it documentation in order for it to know what is your how to define your voice, who is your ICP, how should we position, and then iterate, right? This is not a one-time thing. You have to constantly question it. You'll always constantly have to improve it because AI models are getting better. And the idea is that you want to keep questioning the thing that already works instead of just grabbing new ideas and then feeding it to the AI. It's going to get to the point where it's too much information and you're not getting anywhere, right? So create, upload, instruct, and iterate. What can you expect to happen? So when you extract your LinkedIn data, you're going to see, just like I mentioned, your connections, get a full list of who you're connected to, plus the company data. You get to see the messages, so you understand how you're communicating. You get feedback for how you're communicating with people, what people are looking for you for. I mean, what people are, they tend to approach you for. And then invitations, who reached out, who accepted, and the people that are still ignoring you, right? Because they're still they haven't accepted you, right? And then the profile views, who's looking at your profile, and then you map them to your ICP. Those are usually the ones that have the highest signals. So most people never look at their own data, and that's where the gold is. So that's something that we put into place with our team. We actually extracted all the data from every profile to kind of understand if we actually are connected to our actual audience, or else who are we really connected to, right? We're just making content for anybody, which is not ideal. So what AI does with your data, the first thing is going to segment inbox context. So it's going to organize context for campaign reactivations and who to re-engage. So if you're using tools like AimFox, you're using tools like SendPilot.ai, or you're using tools like HeyReach or any of those tools, then you can actually tell Claude to organize the files after you question the data, right? And then now you have a file that is, hey, this is my ICP and their CEOs, and Claude can actually organize the list for you. So all you have to do is import the data into your campaigns when you're doing LinkedIn outreach. So it's not only going to question who you are in LinkedIn, it's also going to organize the data you're going to re-engage, and it's also going to give you clarity of who you really are. So there's a lot of benefits using AI if you use it properly, right? Because AI, half of the time, is going to gaslight you, is going to hallucinate. But if you're only telling it to base it on your information, it's not going to go elsewhere and find information that doesn't relate. So as I mentioned, the growth reports, this is something that has worked a ton for me, because I want to know who am I really connected to and how much have my profile has grown. That definitely supports a lot of, and it gives me clarity on what content to keep publishing, how should I continue speaking to people, and it kind of helps out giving a ton of clarity. Then the ICP analysis, which is what I mentioned, what percentage of my network actually matches your buyer. So for example, if you're a brand new SDR, you have a lot of connections on your LinkedIn, you have over 5,000 connections, export the data in your contacts. You might already have the ICP for your new client. So you can revisit people that you already been connected to. And if you guys been connected for a while, most likely they'll give you a chance for a conversation, right? Then the network intelligence, you know exactly who you're connected to before you ask anything. So ideally is, my use cases have been, I want to know how I'm speaking to people. What is my growth? Do I have X amount of people that fit my ICP in my network? And I want to know overall, who really is my network. So it's AI is turning raw data into actionable network strategy. So if you know exactly who you are, who's in your network, you know exactly how to sell to them, or you have a better idea instead of just coming up with random things and hope people will like it. And then when they meet you, the idea is pretty much fragmented and disconnected. So you're not really having a conversation. It's a clarity call instead of an actual buy. So the least the least you confuse people, the better chance that you have of converting them in a conversation, right? So every field on LinkedIn is a keyword opportunity. So your LinkedIn profile is an SEO map. So a lot of people will tell you, hey, don't treat LinkedIn as a resume. Those days are gone. Now you got to treat it as an SEO map, right? So nothing should repeat itself, right? And I'm going to walk you through how I do it. Each field serves as a unique purpose in your keyword strategy. So the idea when you're optimizing your profile is not to sound like your landing page. There's actually a format to it, because your profile cannot say the same thing than your company page. That shouldn't be ideal. The biggest pain point in outreach right now or in outbound is that the story doesn't continue. So people are making a poor effort on doing outreach messages, but then when they go on the profile, all you do is confuse the person because you don't look like an authority figure. And not only that, you're not continuing the story. There's a specific journey that people take when they're going your LinkedIn. First is the banner, then is the headline, then is the about us, then is the content you're making, the feature section, right? So there's a journey to it. And then when people feel like they have to know a little bit more, they'll go to your company page, right? And then they read the description or whatever you call it, I think is the overview. And then based on that, they want to also see who's in that company, right? Because if you have a product that has a high ACV, usually they're going to question everything, right, before they make a decision on the product. So what I recommend is, if your profile stands out as authority, if your company page is clear, and every person that's associated with the company, everything makes sense, there's a very small chance that people are going to be confused when they meet with you, right? So second thing I wanted to go over, everything should compound, which is something that I live for. If it's not compounding, it's just taking up space, right? So nothing should repeat itself. Everything should compound, and every word is indexed in Google. So don't quote me 100% on it, right? There's words that get indexed, which is like specialty words on the company page. But if you take this into account, I have increased my search appearance, right? Sometimes people find me easier than what they used to. And it's easier to come up when the searches, when they're looking for something related to, in my case, people that are hiring, people that are looking for opportunities. So I come up on both the buyer and the seller, right? So as I mentioned, each field should serve a unique purpose. Fields build on each other for a strand of your positioning. And then LinkedIn and Google crawl every character you write. So if the information is accurate on your company page and then you connect it to your Google My Business, is going to allow you to be found easier, right? And obviously the topic here is more for candidates, but it's something that you can also bring up to your team, because that can influence more visibility. And if there's more visibility, you guys get found easier. And if you guys get found easier and you happen to be an SDR of that company, you're going to have more traffic to work with. So it's going to be a compound effect, right? So one of the things that I always recommend is things that might not apply for you directly, go and influence the team so they can use it. And if you're an SDR, you also benefit because there's more people coming into your website. So there's fields that matter in the personal profile. I usually follow this framework. So if it's a banner, usually is the visual branding and the CTA. If it's a headline, you don't want to go past 220 characters, not only because it wouldn't let you, right? That's the character limit, but you want to use every single space in there to kind of give clarity, right? But battle test it. Don't just come up with something that's 220 characters and that's it. Might not work, right? But ideally you want to use every single text limitation so that you can fit your message. And the more specific, the more you get in it, the clearer it is for a person to kind of go ahead and book you or start a conversation. Then the about me, it usually goes to 1,650 characters. You have more space to it, but sometimes you don't want to overwhelm the person either, but you want to be very clear on what's your objective, what you're trying to achieve, and what company you represent. right? Regarding the skills, there's 5 terms and single word keywords. You don't want to go crazy with long paragraphs on your skill. It's just keywords that are going to be easy for people to find you, right? The feature section. So this is for you to showcase your best content or any direct links. So I've seen people use landing pages. I've seen people use ebooks, right? I've seen people use their calendar link. You could do that in the feature section. Now the activity view, that's usually something that you can select strategically. So the way that you should use the activity view is there's a default view. You can decide whether it's images, videos, documentation, comments, or just posts. So everything you repost, you can see it, right? Activity view, I recommend do it strategically, just like the feature section. So if there's things to be changed based on the strategy or who you're approaching, you could kind of switch those. You could be very flexible with that. And then recommendations for social proof that sells. So I'm going to walk through this exactly on my profile, how it looks, so you guys have a better idea. So this is Danny, for example. All right. So, so as you can see in my profile, we got the banner. Since I got the LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it allows me to have this effect, like which is a slider. So I get to like kind of add more to it instead of just a fixed image. So I kind of walk people through, the credibility, the call to action, the booking appointment, right? They get to see that once they go into our marketplace, they can see video profiles. This kind of shows a little bit of what the marketplace looked like. Then it shows you that you can request interviews, right? You can also see software. You can also see agencies. It shows the newsletters, right? The ones that we share for candidate opportunities, the one that we share for candidates that are available, and then the RevOps Weekly, where we talk about AI or any tools or any partnerships that we may have, so that we can fill people in and stay up to date. But this goes to show you our banner. Usually people, just with the banner, they have an idea of what I do, but then when they get a little bit more in depth, they get to see who I help. So I help B2B and B2C founders, CEOs, and GTME. You might question what is GTME? That will be GTM engineer leaders. Hire remote SaaS scale talent fast with human verified video profiles, one better matches without wasting time, create a job post, and get interviews within 24 hours. So the reason why I chose this is because this is exactly my people that I constantly supporting, which is B2B and B2C founders. I have a lot of conversations with CEOs and GTM engineers that are hiring more GTM guys for implementation, automation, and whatnot, right? So why did I choose fast? Because those busy founder-led companies, they want to find talent fast. And they also want to make sure that the candidates have a process of a human verification process so that it gives them confidence that the people were vetted. Right. And then ideally what they want to do, they want they want a better match than having to go on LinkedIn, pay LinkedIn, and then having to deal with a massive amount of resumes. And then it keeps them busy with HR work. The people that hire through us, they don't want to deal with that. Right. They want videos, they want it fast, they want a human verification process. So they're all vetted. And then they want to have those candidates booked right in their calendar. So this goes to show you what the narrative has to become in order for people to feel that just on this portion of the LinkedIn page, I can have a possibility to convert them, right? And then they just book an appointment and then they get to see my calendar, right? So banner, headline, call to action, and then the about us. So the about us, this is pretty much like, this is, I pieced it more like, let me give you a little bit of background of what is the challenge, who am I, what am I involved in, and what am I doing, and then the tools that I use, and then the 5 skills that I mentioned, right? So I put myself as community builder, GTM, super connector, partnerships, and RevOps, and then the services options, right? You can put images, testimonials, and then this gives you the service options where people could go find those specific services, and then I'll come up, right? So the reason why I'm showing this and the reason why you see a profile like the way that I'm doing is because I'm using every single opportunity to fill information that is relevant to our company so that we get found easily, right? So What I did also as well is, gather reviews, right? People that I supported, help, consulted. You can also get reviews, right? So if you're an SDR, um, and you have clients that you worked in the past, get reviews. That makes you look very good on LinkedIn, and you look like an authority figure, right? On the feature section, as you can see, I put something related to an event. I published this related to my certification on AIMFox. And I posted this on a reward that I won on AI awards. That was with a company called Signal. Um, and then this is the activity view. So I have the option to hit this little pen and then switch the view that I want to default, right? Not sure why this is not, it's taking a minute to load. But the idea is I can choose whether I want to show posts like the way I have it now, comments, videos, images, articles, newsletters, events, and then documents, right? So this is the activity view. You ideally want to use it strategically. It has worked a ton for me. And then obviously what I mentioned on, fill up all the information you can. So your previous experience, also put any recommendations. Like I managed to get over 19 recommendations from people that I worked with in the past. So that gives you an idea, right? And I noticed that when people look at recommendations, they're pretty much sold in, right? So just leverage that. It doesn't hurt to ask somebody that you worked with in the past, especially if you had a good experience. And that's going to make your profile stand out, right? So we cover banner, headline, about me, skills, feature section, activity views, and recommendations, right? And if everything makes sense, your profile makes sense. And if it makes sense to them, they will think that you're the right person to address their business challenge, right? So this is the reason why we get a high conversion on using LinkedIn. And the reason why people choose us when they're looking for their next hire is because we apply this for every single profile in our company. So we have Daniel, we have Amir, which is the CEO, we have Blue, we have Matt, we have Arturo, we have Jessica, we have David, we have Carol, and we have Natalia, right? So every profile reflects exactly who we are. Oversees talent quality for the marketplace, right? I'm pretty much taking those calls in order to qualify the buyers. So it's not make every profile look the same. Is make sure the narrative is protected, the context is protected, the visuals are protected, but then respect everybody's department and their specific KPIs or their specific background, right? So that everything kind of makes sense, right? So going back to the presentation, the fields that matter. So the company page. So the company page is a different monster. And the reason why is because LinkedIn prioritize profiles versus company page, right? So if for example, let's say you're an SDR and AE and you're building in public and you see that your company is just publishing on the company page, is a risk. It's better to publish from the profile pages. So use this as a repost channel, but not as where the content should initially get published, right? So the way that we use it is similar thing, which is the banner, make sure it's clear. Don't repeat a headline from a profile on the company page. That is nonsense, right? You ideally want to use like your mantra or they call it the tagline, right? The good thing about it is that if you have the sales navigator, you get to put a little testimonial, you get to see the overview. And the reason why I'm sharing this is not only because this is going to help you as an AE and SDR, as a company that's hiring to get clarity in your product, but it also helps you when you do research, right? Because if you're capable to get all this context and leverage that, when you're reaching out to those prospects, it's easier for you to protect that context as well. And then when you reached out to them, the message is more powerful than you having to do like a quick scan on their profile. So this is going to help you find the right information for the people you're prospecting and then leverage that for the narrative and potentially close more deals, right? So there's three components on the company page. Primarily is the tagline. So it's the core promise of your company. Then it's the company overview, which is what is the problem, what is the bridge, what is the credibility, and then what is the differentiator. So if you don't have this on the company page, it's very hard to continue that story, because the profile page is talking more about the person, their mission, and what they do, right? But the company is the overall mission. So ideally, you want to fill in 1,300 characters. You also have the option to showcase services. So you can select up to 10 different services. So we do that as well, just to make sure that um, it reflects the profile. So you can see the services here, and people can actually see our testimonials, right? So ideally what I put is, this is where US companies build GTM teams with LATAM talent, right? Then you have the service description, which is the outcome proof and CTA in 3 lines. So that's usually the framework that I have to follow in order for every effort you make on the profiles. The company page comes in and also supports, and then we keep the story for longer, right? So one of the things that I also wanted to cover is the specialties. The specialties is this right here. This is when you go to a company, you see the about, there's keywords that you can add on the specialties. And this is what gets indexed in Google, right? So it might help you get more context of the people you're prospecting. It's going to help you improve your company profile. And sometimes we have teams that it's a founder-led company. They have one SDR, and sometimes they expect SDRs to come back with feedback or ideas. So this is low-hanging fruit ideas that you can actually bring to your team, and you can even implement, and it's going to help you learn more about the company. So this is not something that you should always expect the people that hire you to do it. Bring up the idea, right? If you're having certain calls and you're picking up patterns on those calls that, we should have that in the company page. We should have that in our profiles. Bring it up. It's a lot of it is ownership as well, right? So what happens when you take all this into account, right? The compounding effect is, if you're doing outreach through LinkedIn, right, the messages are now complementing the profile, and the profile is being supported by the company page, right? So it's a compounding effect. So connection request is the first touch, personal profile is when they click through, and then company page is when they start digging deeper, right? So the same positioning deepens the story. No repetition, each field adds new context. So what has worked for us is, if we nail down the message, if we nail down each profile, and if we make sure that everything is centralized and organized on the company page, the story continues, right? And then people are going to want to learn more. But if you don't give them enough information and give them like an experience, they're just going to jump off after they see your banner. And then you just lost an opportunity for people to kind of, learn a little bit about you and what you do, right? So when somebody reads your connection request, they visit your profile, then checks your company page. The story deepens, it doesn't restart. Right. So that's something to take into account. I get a lot of people that come to me like, hey, Dave, what are you doing on LinkedIn that I can replicate? What should I do? And honestly, it got to the point where I don't even give recommendations anymore. I tell people, go get the context of whatever you're doing. And then once you have the context, then we could come up with all the creative ideas. Right. Because before I used to have an issue where I would recommend things to people just because they're working for me. But then I realized it's all about protecting the context. And then once you have the context, sometimes you don't even have to ask for recommendations. You're going to get clarity on what you can do now. So for me, is like every time somebody approaches me, is like, you got to build a system that has a compound effect, and you have to make sure you protect the context. Or else, like, you can be as creative as you want, but it's not going to go anywhere. So there's 2 types of LinkedIn authority, and you will see this as well, especially if you're prospecting as an SDR and an AE. There's 2 type of people. There's people, one, that already have authority. So it's like Elon Musk or all those guys. They don't really need to do much in order for them to stand out, right? They're not even doing LinkedIn outreach. Everybody just pretty much pitching them, right? So if you're CEO of an own brand, they don't really have to worry about improving their LinkedIn, right? If they're not selling, like for example, the CEO of Anthropic, everybody just reaching out to them and trying to get partnerships and whatnot. They already an authority figure. The brand speaks for themselves, right? And and their profile just do it all, right? They get a whole bunch of traffic. They don't have to even get on a call. They just go straight to their website and they convert. But for us that are constantly operating, getting deals, creating content, building on public, we need a system. And the only way we can survive through this is having a system, whether it's for content, whether it's for campaign generation, whatever it is. Your profile is your sales asset at the end of the day, right? So usually when I get in calls with buyers, I connect with every single person on LinkedIn, because now they get to see my content. Now they get to ask questions. Now they have another door to reach out to me. And then it just gets very, they feel the level of support. So what I recommend as an SDR, as an AE, connect with every person you're talking to. They might not convert now, they might not commit now, but essentially the more content they see, the more prepared they feel to have a conversation with you. And then if the moment comes, they have enough context for them to make a decision, right? So if you're a service business in a growth stage, you need a system, you need an structured profile system, and you need to make sure that you have your profile as a sales asset. So you must make sure or have the mentality that every field must convert, right? So what is the headline formula? The one I've been using for the team, and the one I've used across 150 different profiles that we have optimized, is I help A do B through C, and if you want D, then E and get F. So like I mentioned, you have 220 character limitation. So A is who you help, so your ideal client or audience. B is what they achieve, the outcome or transformation. C, your method, so the mechanism or approach. D is the desire, what they actually want from you. And then E, the action, the next step they should take. And then the payoff, which is F, the specific result or deliverable, right? So your headline is the most read line on your entire profile. Make every character count, right? So as I mentioned, don't just fit 220 characters just because. You want to make sure you take this into account, because this is the framework that's going to work, right? Because they need to feel familiar, right? So they want to know how you're helping, right? They want to know what you can achieve. They want to know what method you're using. They want to know that you're desiring in a specific thing, and there's an action to take, and there's something I'm going to get in return. So if you piece all that in with the context of your business, as an SDR, you're going to stand out immediately. And you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to pay for anything. This is just you transforming the context you have into something that you can actually rely on. So the about section formula. So as I went back into the company page, right? Give me 1 second, because I want to connect this very well. So for the company page, as I mentioned, is problem, bridge, credibility, and differentiator. When it comes to the profile, the about me is, the context is, tell me why you exist. Why is your original story, right? Sometimes I have people that come to me like, I see you've been an SDR, customer support, affiliate, all these roles. I think you would understand me. So people will actually go back into your previous experience and bring your previous experience, because that gave them confidence to talk to you. So if somebody saw that I used to be an SDR, they're going to bring challenges that they had as an SDR, because they feel that I've been on that seat before, so they can have an actual conversation with me about it, right? So it's very important for you to make sure you fill all that information about your previous experience, because you will have people reach out to you. Hey, I see you've been an affiliate marketer. Hey, I see you've done email marketing. Hey, I see you've been an SDR, customer support. And they'll open up more with you. And the more they open up, they're basically confessing all their challenges, and then they'll feel like you're the right person to address the challenges, right? So problem. What's the problem in your market? Name the pains clearly. If you name the pains, you get to match the business challenge with the pain. And then obviously they're going to feel like you're the right person to address the pain, right? Then the method is, how do you fix it? So you got to show your unique approach. And then a CTA, what should they do next? Make the action obvious. So your profile is for them to learn who you are as an authority figure, right? Your company is to pretty much position what is the pain point that you can solve for them through your company, right? And if you don't achieve that, it's very hard for the story to compound, right? So tell them why you exist, what's broken, how you fix it, and what to do next. Then we have the part that I enjoy the most, because this is what has leveled me up as a content creator slash SDR slash AE slash person that loves to model other creators. And what I do is I like to curate my feed, right? Because you're going to realize LinkedIn becomes also a distraction channel, right? Because you're going to get distracted. There's people trying to create things that are viral, get lead magnets. Everybody's trying to pitch, but there's certain top performers you want to model, right? So if you already protected the context of your business and then you cross-reference that with a top performer, you know what things will make sense for you to model, right? So one of the things that I managed to do to properly model people is protecting my context, or else it doesn't make sense, right? Because if I'm modeling a top performer and I don't know my context, I'm basically doing what they're doing, but without my context. So it's like, what am I really doing, right? So one of the things that I did in order to model top performers is obviously analyze feature sections. They take advantage of the feature sections. So one of the things that I use is remove the description links, right? Make something that's clean, minimal, and action oriented. That's going to make sure that, you're going to see a lot of people that are big on LinkedIn and there's a high usage of their feature section. So try to model what they're doing. What I've seen is this: first is the booking, second is an ebook, and then third is the website with like a big offer, like a slam offer, right? Sometimes it's just 3 posts that went very viral. So you want to model what works and what brings actual traffic to your website or your booking link, right? So those are top performing behaviors that I've seen. When it comes to activity view, as I mentioned, be strategic: images, videos, articles, and then you can adjust it to your current strategy. Recommendations, like I mentioned, you want to collect them aggressively. People are not going to be upset because you gave them a good experience and now you want to get their recommendation. They will actually be more pleased to actually support you, right? So people who read your recommendations before reaching out are already 70% sold. So that covers part of the top performing behaviors. You want to model the feature section, you want to use the activity view correctly, and you want to capture as much recommendations, right? So the main takeaway of this is not only to model those top performing behaviors, but also know how to use that to properly model other creators. So you can actually continue improving your narrative. You find different angles of how you create content, but protecting your context. Okay. So the complete story: outreach is your first impression. Your profile is where they have credibility. Your company is where you have your brand authority, and then recommendations is pretty much your social proof. So that's the buyer journey in that sense. So each touch points reinforces the last. Everything should compound so that they know you're the right person, and it makes them want to come back to your profile and learn more, right? If you're not making that effect, people are just looking at your profile once and just jumping out of it and just never go back to it. They don't remember. They don't even know how to find you again. And if they go look for something familiar, you're not even going to pop up on the search. So make sure you cover all this that I covered today. The buyers who take time to read your full story are the ones that are ready to buy. Give them the full story. So if they're asking for the story, give it to them. Just give it to them. This is easy as protecting your context, and then just share what you guys have done. Talk about the clients you converted. Talk about the success you had. Right. In our case, we talk about our retention levels. Right. We talk about our speed to match. Right. We talk about a marketplace that has a lot of candidates, that has SaaS experience, that have video profiles. Right. You want to create the story. And the thing is, you as an SDR, you as an AE, you're not being hired to just push sales. You're being hired to get feedback and return it back to your team so the whole narrative can continue compounding. So treat the role as, hey, I'm going to have a profile that has all the context. I'm going to have conversations that are going to extract more context, and then I'm going to improve my narrative. That's the way that you should look into it, because it's the only way you can actually survive right now. All right. It's the only way people can find you. It's the only way a buyer would not be confused or avoid actually taking the time to book you. So that's something that is super important. So the main recap from this is, it's a system, right? You got to build an AI context engine. You have to map every profile fields. You have to model top performers, right? And this is honestly the only way we were capable to compete on LinkedIn, stay relevant. Our content at times go viral, and when they go viral, it's not because, hey, everybody's watching us. No, we're actually getting people hired through this viral post, right? Because it's getting to a hiring company that wants to hire their first team on LATAM. So don't use content to get viral just to get viral. Use content to push revenue, right? But protecting the context. That's the only way it will really work, right? Because if you're just building in public for the sake of it and none of that's converting either to affiliate sales or you're not really improving your company's narrative, you just a user and a spectator on LinkedIn, but you're not driving any demand. Right. So stop treating your profile like a one-time setup, treat it like a living sales asset. Is something that I would always live by because I remember back in 2022, I would have never guessed LinkedIn will influence pipeline. And over years, I realized the problem is that I didn't have the context to feel confident that I could actually use the channel to generate conversations that were highly qualified. So the more I got involved, the more content I started building. And one of my biggest fear was actually building in public because I figure everybody will look at it, question it, and then talk bad about it. But I got the whole opposite effect. People are actually giving me credit for actually pushing content, even though at first it wasn't the best formats. It wasn't, people weren't taking a lot from it. But now I got to the point where I understood how to create the content, how to get the message across, and how to activate people to actually do something with that content, right? Because what you are going to see and what I can guarantee is that there's a lot of smoke on LinkedIn. There's a lot. And if you don't clean your feed, if you don't know who you're going after, the same tool is going to push you out of the tool. LinkedIn is made for you to stay in your feed. And if your feed is something that is horrific, because I've seen people just literally they step out of LinkedIn because of their feed, it's not going to be fun for you. You're not going to get as far as what most of us are doing. So work on your feed, protect the context, feed it to AI, make sure that AI learns it and understands it better than you. And then iterate, battle test, get in there, get in the field, create content, fuck it up, fix it, learn. And then eventually you're going to get good at it. Eventually you're going to have a network that's going to pick that up and then like what you do, like the angles you're making. But if you don't go as far as working with your feed and protecting your context, nothing that I showed you today is going to make sense to you. And you're still going to struggle of, is LinkedIn the right channel for me? Is LinkedIn a good channel for me to show what I'm building, what I'm doing, the objections that I'm facing? So my lesson to you guys with this presentation is, once again, protect the context. That's going to be the gateway to everything. You can create articles, content. You can give feedback to your team. You can remix context that you did a year ago, and you can make it better now, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to cover. One of the things that has stood out the most to me is obviously this LLMs are improving, Claude, ChatGPT. So once you get to the level where you're confident, this is who I am, this is who I truly want to represent, this is what I truly do, what you want to really achieve is when there's new models in the LLMs, you want to question it with that context. And then you're going to get very solid feedback. Like I remember doing this exercise before Opus 4.5 came out, right? And then now that there's Opus 4.6, it has more capacity to hold on to context and not reset and then hallucinate. So once you get to the point where you feel confident about what you're doing, what you represent, keep testing it with the newer models, and then you're going to realize there's still areas of opportunities for you to fix. But once you get to the point you fix them all, you're going to get on those calls very confident. You're going to create content very confident. You go to an event and you're going to flex on the stuff you're doing. But if you don't have the context, it's going to take very long time. And 35% of the stuff you talk about, they might not be true, right? You're just trying to overhype something so that somebody can give you the attention, right? But what you really want to do is protect context, create solid content. Don't be afraid of making content like I did in the past, and start building. Most likely something is going to work. One post is going to go viral. People are going to come in your LinkedIn profile, and you want to be prepared for that day, because the moment that all that audience decide to go and check you out, If your profile is not fully set up, you just lost opportunity to convert that traffic, whether to become raging fans and people that want to keep supporting you, or somebody that can potentially influence your pipeline. So that was the presentation that I wanted to cover with you guys. Um, I do see some questions. So Amir mentioned, when do we learn about the Manjura method? So the Manjura method is actually funny because one of the things that I used to do in the past is I would reach out to a lot of sales leaders in the space and I would find as many mistakes as possible. So this is a very strong trick that held me down for 2 years. So when you're going for authority figures that you want to talk to, or you want to have a conversation with, like I did this with Jason Bay, Chris Orlow, is find mistakes, find broken links. You know, even if it's like old blogs or anything like that, go find mistakes and then go tell them, hey, I found this mistakes. I did that also with Samantha McKenna, and you build very strong relationship because they're already an authority figure. It's very rare for people to come to them like, hey, I saw something that's not working. There's a link that's not working as it should, right? And they appreciate that. So use that opportunity. That's my Manjura method. Find mistakes. If you find mistakes, call them out. People are going to thank you for them. And eventually they're going to want to have a conversation with you. I have converted clients just by telling them I found a mistake in their website. Right. And I didn't have to be an AE, a full cycle, an SDR. I did it out of goodwill, and then that influenced pipeline. So if essentially is, if you care, they're going to give you an opportunity to show them what you do. Right. I had responses of people telling me like, Dave, I don't care what you offer, pitch me. Right. Because I earned that level of credibility where, you know, they're like, I like your approach. You know, I like your approach. I want to see what else you got. And most of the time when I approach somebody, it's either I got an opportunity for them, I want to teach them something, or I want to spot a mistake. So that's my Manjura method. It could work. Use it at your own risk, right? Because there's some people that if you don't know how to approach, they're not going to like it. They might feel like you're just trying to try them and test them out. But if you do it out of goodwill, you will have a high, a very strong benefit from it, right? So guys, this was a great session. I hope you guys had some value from this. You will find this presentation in my profile. I left it there on purpose just so that you can go back to it. I don't want this presentation to get lost in an email or in a reminder. I want you guys to see the profile, see what that framework did for my profile, and you can also find it there. So it was a pleasure. And hopefully I can have another session just like this so I can walk you through some of the new things that I'm working on and get you guys excited for more opportunities in the marketplace.